안녕하세요. 영화보는 강신부예요. 오늘 저는 크리스토퍼 놀란 감독의 배트맨 시리즈 첫 번째 영화인 배트맨 비긴즈에 대해 말하고 싶어요. 제 생각에 배트맨 시리즈는 최고의 만들어진 시리즈 중이기 때문에 이 영화에 대해 말할 수 있어 기뻐요. 크리스토퍼 놀란 감독은 최고의 현직 감독들 중 한 명이에요.
I started to become more at ease with the idea that filmmakers, storytellers, they grasp evocative symbols, they grasp resonant imagery. And the reason these things are evocative and resonant is that they do have other layers, subconscious layers of resonance that the filmgoer can pick up on and interpret in their own way, and that is a valid approach.
I like Christopher Nolan's movies so much because he knows how to use symbols and myths to tell a deeper story. Christopher Nolan, when he made this movie in 2005, he wanted to make a more serious, realistic version of Batman. The movie starts off, we see Bruce as a child who is innocently playing in a garden with his friend Rachel. He falls down this well and lands at the bottom, hurts himself. A bunch of bats swarm around him, and he is terrified by that experience. Then the movie suddenly flashes forward to when Bruce is an adult, and we see that things are not going well for him. He's in a prison, and he's really not having a good time.
You are in hell, little man.
The traumatic experience he had as a child of falling in that well and being scared by bats has led him to be in a prison, and he is truly lost. Bruce suffers so much as a child. One day his parents take him to an opera where there are these bat-like figures that are dancing around during the opera. Bruce suddenly gets terrified, and he asks his dad to leave the theater. As they leave the theater, a thief comes and actually ends up shooting both of Bruce's parents right in front of him. And Bruce actually feels guilty about this.
It's my fault, Alfred. I made them leave the theater. If I hadn't gotten scared.
It was nothing that you did. It was him, and him alone.
It's actually such a tragic story. An innocent kid who had done nothing wrong has to endure the death of his parents. The movie makes a really clear message that life is suffering, and many times we have to suffer things that we don't deserve. Life is suffering, and death is inevitable.
I can barely stand. Death does not wait for you to be ready. Death does not consider it warfare. And make no mistake, here you face death.
As a Catholic priest, people ask me a lot, why do I suffer? Why do I have to endure the death of a friend or the death of my parents? Why is there evil in the world? Why is there suffering? And that's such a hard question to answer. Christopher Nolan makes it clear through symbolism that suffering, falling down, and death are just a part of life. And he actually does it through the symbol of physical falling. Batman falls down in this film so many times.
Movie stars.
It's a theme in the film. Batman falls. Nolan also depicts the city of Gotham as fallen. Every time we see Gotham, it's always kind of dark and dirty and not nice to look at. The movie makes it clear that not only is Bruce personally fallen and broken, but that Gotham is also. 인생은 고통으로 가득 차 있어요. 우리는 많이 넘어질 거예요. This is a superhero movie, but Christopher Nolan thinks that Batman is a special superhero that we can actually imitate.
Of course, the thing you always have to remember about Bruce Wayne and Batman, is Bruce Wayne doesn't have any superpowers other than extraordinary wealth. He's very, very rich. As I've always said about the character, he's just someone who does a lot of push-ups. So he's, in that sense, very relatable and very human.
Bruce Wayne goes from being this child that suffers a lot to becoming a hero that saves the city. This is the story of the hero's journey. It's the story of how to become a superhero. The villain that Bruce has to fight to become the hero is actually inside himself, and the journey he has to make is an interior journey.
What you really fear is inside yourself. You fear your own power. You fear your anger. Now, you must journey inwards.
Bruce, because of his traumatic childhood filled with so much suffering, he constantly feels guilt and anger, and these feelings are represented symbolically in the film through bats. Bruce has to learn to confront these fears and face them.
Breathe in your fears. Face them.
At first, these feelings of guilt and anger almost control Bruce, and he tries to get revenge on the man who killed his parents, thinking that that will bring justice to the world.
My parents deserve justice.
Well, you're not talking about justice, you're talking about revenge.
Sometimes they're the same.
No, they're never the same, Bruce. Justice is about harmony, revenge is about you making yourself feel better.
모든 사람은 넘어져야 하고 자신의 어둠을 직면해야 돼요. 모든 사람들은 자신들 내면에 두려움, 어두운 그림자, 그리고 자신들만의 박쥐를 대면해야 해요. 만약 우리가 이 떠오름에 맞서지 않는다면 결국엔 그 두려움이 우리를 지배하게 될 거예요. Bruce wants justice for what happened to him as a kid, but he has to learn to use these feelings of guilt and anger as a weapon for good.
Batman's primary weapon is fear.
Yes, using his own fear against his opponents. And very much the theme is about taking grief and taking very negative emotions of anger, etc., and being able to find a way to use them constructively.
After Bruce finally decides to become a hero, he goes back to the well that he fell down as a kid and descends down that well, and then discovers a cave where the bats actually come from. The bats swarm him again, but this time, instead of cowering in fear, Batman shines a light on the bats. Again, the bats in this movie represents those feelings of guilt and anger that Bruce felt for all the suffering he had as a child. Once he decides to use those feelings for good, he becomes a superhero. He becomes Batman.
What the hell are you? I'm Batman.
There's even a scene where Batman uses physical bats as a weapon. It's a symbol of him taking his feelings of guilt and anger and using them for a good cause. 모든 사람은 영웅이 될 수 있어요. 인천한 영웅은 자신의 두려움과 어둠을 가지고 선을 위해 싸울 수 있는 무기로 바꿔. The figure of Batman has always been accompanied by another image that was present in the comics and in the movies, and that is the image of the bat signal. It's a great bright light that Batman would shine in the sky in order to give hope to the people of Gotham.
As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
To be a true hero, you don't just confront your own darkness. You shine your light in the sky so that other people will be inspired to do the same. Batman, in order to save Gotham, needs to inspire everyone to conquer their own fears. Both Batman and the city of Gotham have suffered greatly, but Batman teaches them that their suffering happens for a reason. They fall for a reason.
And why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up.
Suffering in the world has a reason. It gives us a chance to be symbols of hope for others to be able to lift themselves up. Picking ourselves up from a fall makes us a hero. 제 비디오를 봐주셔서 정말 감사합니다. 제 목표는 앞으로 비디오를 만들면서 한국어를 더 많이 쓰는 거예요. 그러니까 조금만 기다려주세요. 한국어를 더 많이 열심히 공부할 거예요. 다음에 또 봐요.